Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands we're joining from today.
I'm joining from Lisarow on the lands of the Darkinjung people.
And I am joining from the lands of the Nyungbul people of the Bundjalung Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. We acknowledge their deep and ongoing connection to land, waters, language and culture, and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Before we jump into this episode, a quick note on why we make Femmebot. Kat and I run Crybaby Productions, a creative agency working with enterprise brands. We help marketing teams turn complex products into stories and campaigns that actually drive growth. We started Femmebot because we kept meeting incredible women leading in tech. We wanted to create a space to share their thinking and leadership. So most AI startups start with a technical problem, but today's guest started with a personal one. Laetitia Andrac spent years working across consulting and enterprise technology, including leading big data and AI initiatives at Telstra, where she helped organisations better understand their customers and build new digital services. But her latest company started somewhere much closer to home. Laetitia is founder of Understanding Zoe, which is an AI-powered platform designed to help families, teachers and therapists better support neurodivergent children. Inspired by her own daughter Zoe, the platform aims to create a more connected support system around every child. Laetitia, welcome to Femmebot, and this is something that I am personally super interested in, having 3 neurodivergent children myself, and Kat is actually a trained and qualified teacher, so I'm sure she'll be loving this chat as well. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Claire and Kat.
Thank you.
Obviously had a fascinating career across consulting, strategy and enterprise tech. And we start every kind of program with, if you could walk us briefly through your journey and how you first became involved in data and AI as well, that would be great.
Sure. So yeah, I started my journey, as you mentioned, in strategy consulting, and then I moved to Australia after many years in strategy consulting after an autistic burnout. And when I started my time in Australia, when I was recovering from my burnout, I funded a startup. And then I was like, no, actually, I'm not ready yet. I want to go back to corp and I want to do great things within. How transformation can often happen within a big corporation so that you have a bigger impact. And so I went and joined Telstra, and I started with a digital transformation within Telstra. So really working into bringing to life Telstra 24/7. It was back in 2014, so a long time ago. So just digital first, and how do we go digital first, which now would be AI first, right? So now you don't have any company talking about a digital strategy because everyone is digital now. So we're talking now about AI strategy. But that's when I started putting my hands a bit more into the tech space. And after a few months developing this strategy, starting implementing it and so on, I was getting a bit bored. And I was like, what are the things that interest me? And that's when I found that Telstra had so much untapped and data that were highly valuable and could create a new phase of growth within Telstra. So how can we use those data and create use cases for positive and greater impact using those data? And that's how I ended up funding within Telstra what's called Telstra Location Insights, which is still existing, which was about using internal proprietary data, fusing it with third-party data to create new use cases for smart cities, for safety and informing people when something is happening, knowing about people's movement and population movement, always respecting anonymity with care anonymization and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to get into detail and technology, but this is where in 2014, I started working on this project, which then grew to a bigger team and to millions of dollars and things like that. And that's when I really started diving into machine learning, deep learning, AI, big data, and all of that. And I was leading a team of mostly male, and I was always one of the only female in those meetings, but really driving the vision of using data for a greater good.
What was that like being in, an industry, I mean, not just the industry, but being in a team that was predominantly male and being their boss, their leader?
It's a very good question. And actually, it felt quite natural because in strategy consulting, it was also kind of the same. There were not many female in strategy consulting as well. And I think this is where it really helped me to lead those teams because I was not feeling so different to them and I could lead them. The moment where everything shifted is when I became a mother. So this is something that I really emphasize on with my own lived experience, which doesn't mean everyone has this kind of lived experience. But for me, before being a mother, and I remember being featured on a documentary about this in France, about how female leader can really go after their career and things like that. But I think when I became a mother, for me, lots of things shifted. Now I know it's matrescence, it's a shift in terms of what you really want to be doing, where you want to spend your time, how you want to impact. And this is physical, emotional, hormonal change, lots of things change. And for me, it was really the catalyst for seeing myself differently. But before that, I was really not seeing any gender divides, if that makes sense. I was really like, whatever, I have a vision, I have a passion, I'm going to lead them wherever we're going, whoever you are, you're part of this team and we are all in the same bus. So let's go on that journey together. So it was actually not so different to leading anyone else. But when I became a mother and when there was something else in my life, and on top of that, which we may mention today, having children with special needs, it just felt that a big shift happened within me, around me, and in my career.
Can I ask a quick question about that? Sorry, when you did have a child, was that immediate or did it take some time for that shift? And did you
I think it was immediate.
Did you fight
I think
it
it was
at
really
all?
immediate. I remember I was this kind of career woman, really always going after the next career step and, being general manager in a big firm and then looking at how can I become an executive director, like always going to the next stage. And when I became a mother, and this is my own journey, for some other people, it may be actually quite the opposite. But for me, it was just a moment of, okay, how do I want to use my brain power? What do I want to give back to society? What is the type of future I want to create for my daughters? And so it was really immediate. And so I remember going back to my role and just having this moment of reflection around, oh my goodness, I could be doing something else. I could be leading differently, and then looking for female talent who had children and really trying to nurture them and bring them in my team and give them the flexibility they deserve, like really shifting my focus into this new space of how do we enable real inclusion in the workplace by acknowledging that everyone is having a different journey.
And let's move into your startup world. How did that experience influence how you approach, how you build startups today?
So Understanding Zoe is not my first startup. I had other failure behind on my tote bag, as I call it, on my backpack. So I really think that when I went on to create Understanding Zoe, I had those experiences, but also I was part of the mentoring group within Telstra. We had Murudi, which was an accelerator within Telstra. So I was mentoring startup. So I had been kind of working in startup, not very much successfully, and mentoring other startup as well. So I think when I stepped on this journey with Understanding Zoe, I had all of this luggage, and that's why I encourage anyone who is listening to this who is willing to start working in a startup is you can start your journey, whatever age you have, whatever is your gender, whatever is your cultural background and so on. But just know that it's a journey that the more you surround yourself with other founder and other experience and their own failure or your own failure, the more you will be equipped. It's really like anything in life. It's about experience. My journey to funding Understanding Zoe came after nearly 3.5 years, 4 years jumping off the corporate bandwagon. So I had left Telstra in the middle of COVID in April 2021. So soon it's going to be 5 years. And they were going out with voluntary redundancy. So they have 5 spots for general manager as voluntary redundancy. No one wanted to take it. And I was the only one applying. And my boss at the time, kudos to you if you listen to this, was like, we're never going to give it to you because you're performing well and we need you. And I'm like, but no one else will apply. It's COVID. Everyone is scared. We don't know what's happening. But I am applying to get this voluntary redundancy. And that's when I funded my own consultancy. And I ran it very successfully until I started Understanding Zoe. So I think my journey into the startup world was one that was really not something completely telling you, I didn't romanticize it. I was actually quite blunt about it. And I knew it would be a hard journey. I knew it would be a lonely journey. I know it would be a journey where we will face lots of biases. I wrote an article for Cut Through Venture report around venture capitalist funding 2025, which was released a few weeks ago. And it's page 60 if anyone wants to read it. And I speak about intersectionality and how biased is the funding journey in Australia. And as a founder with CALD, which means my native language is not English, I am a founder with autistic, so I am disabled. I am a founder with a mother and a woman. So I have lots of biases. So the chances to raise capital, and we know that it's not about just raising capital to be successful in a startup, but you do need capital to invest and to do the right thing. This is where there is lots of, unfortunately, inequity in the system, in the actual system. So I was not romanticized it. I had seen it from startup I had mentored, from startup I had worked with, from startup I had contracted for in the last few years. So I was really not going with Understanding Zoe being like, it's going to be so easy and I'm going to go to this, hockey sticks trajectory of growth in a minute. And no, I was really, really clear about what I was getting myself into. And I resisted it for quite some time, to be fully honest with you. I was like, no, don't want to do that. But actually it was a pull, and the people who were using it were telling me, you need to go all in, you need to do it. And it took me a few months definitely to back myself and trust the journey and go all in with Understanding Zoe.
I know you've got a question, Claire, but just in terms of getting investment, I think there'd be so many people interested. What was that like? You're stepping into these investment, like venture capital kind of spaces and rooms. There is a lot of bias in how they allocate their money. So I'd be so interested to see how that unfolded and how it went and how you did raise investment.
Yes, of course. I'm happy to share this with you. And again, this is my own lived experience. It doesn't mean that anyone who's listening to this will have the same experience. There is as many experience as human raising capital in the VC world. But I think for me, it was always a moment of synchronicity, a little moment of magic. So those moments where you meet the right person at the right time and you have the right product, which is resonating with their own lived experience. So for us, with a product like Understanding Zoe, only those who live it understand what we're building. This is the thing. It's like, it's not something that everyone needs, but those who need it, they really need it. It's not just a vitamin thing. It's really the painkiller. So finding investors who resonate with the problem space and understand what you're trying to build made a real difference for us, and will make a difference for any of you who is listening to this, with building something that has social impact, that has a global social impact like ours. So for me, it was really connection. It started the journey with going through Techstars, which unfortunately is not existing anymore in Australia, but I was part of a cohort in Techstars, and the connection with Techstars happened through another friend of mine who was a PR. And when I told her what I was doing with Understanding Zoe, she was like, oh my goodness, you should go and apply to Techstars. I was like, oh, I was a mentor at Morudi. I know that it's just one of those things. I'm not sure I want to do it. But actually, I went on and I met the managing director at the time, which was Kirsten Hunter, and just had an immediate connection. And so I joined Techstar, which was the first raise of VC capital from the US. And then from Techstars, I was nominated as the top 10 last year as top 10 APAC founder, female founder in global social impact. So through this journey, through this program in APAC, I met an investor who was based out of a Singaporean fund, which invests anywhere in the world, based out of different countries. And when I met one of the managing partner of that fund, they quickly resonated with a problem that we were trying to solve. And this is how we went on with them. So my experience was an international raise rather than an Australian raise. And that's something that I think is really beneficial for us in our journey with Understanding Zoe, but also something that I wrote in this thought leadership paper for the State of Funding 2025, which is we need in Australia to have more investors who are aware of their own biases. Because I found in many conversations I had in Australia, it was always framed through preventative question rather than promotional questions, which means I was always starting from a question which was framed negatively. So I had to catch up to then be able to promote myself and promote my business. So we need to really make sure that investors in Australia are trying to look at their own biases and unconscious biases to promote women more, because it's not a pipeline issue. There is so many women who are trying to fund businesses around me. And unfortunately, it's not a pipeline issue. It's more something else. You wanted to say something, Claire?
I was going to ask, like you said that you were already coming the preventative versus promotional. Can you just explain what that looked like in your case?
Yeah, sure. So for instance, let's talk about a market size, for instance. So a preventative question will be, so you say that 1 in 5 people in the world are neurodivergent, which means 20% of the population, right? That's very small, isn't it? Whereas you say, so that's preventative. So then you're like, actually 20% is 1.6 billion. It's actually quite huge. And then you start, a promotional question would be, so you say 1 in 5 people in the world are neurodivergent. That is a huge opportunity. Can you tell me how you're going to tackle this market?
Amazing.
Very different question. You start 10 step backward or 10 step forward.
You're almost defending yourself
Completely.
rather than, it's crazy. Yeah.
And this is coming from the bias of, oh, women are creating like small business. What is your small business? What is your little hobby? It's a big business. It's a big impact. It's some things that can really change the life of 20% and more of the population. So this is the kind of thing where, and the preventative question versus promotional question, there is a big research that has been done around this. And I have experienced it firsthand. So for anyone listening to this who is raising or in the process of raising, just start learning about how can you reframe those questions, which are preventative, into promotional, because this will help you then have greater conversation with investors and just call out the biases. I remember like sometime I was brutally honest and many people were like, oh, it's because you're French, you can be, but it's also because I'm autistic and it's because I have no filter anymore and I'm just unmasking totally myself. So this is what you get. And so I was just like, can you reframe the question in a way that's more positive? Or can you reframe the question if you really want to be blunt, but sometimes it's not easy to do that. Rather than doing that, you reframe the question yourself. And you're like, so you asked me about the market size, and actually 20% of the population is quite a compelling market, especially when you know that we're going also to touch those that are surrounding those individuals, which are not necessarily neurodivergent, but they're also impacted by the invisible load of looking after those children and those family members. So it's just, you can reframe it to show, but you have to do this reframe yourself, which is not making it easy for you. When actually, if you come and you are a male founder raising, and this is why you see that 2 male founder are easier, like it's easier for them to raise because of the unconscious biases, because by definition and by research, there is a more likelihood to ask them positive promotional questions.
Yeah. Thank you. That's super helpful.
Can you tell, obviously that's how you got there with funding, etc., but from a personal perspective, how did you come up with the idea for Understanding Zoe? And talk me through that. I know Claire knows a lot about it, but I don't. So I'd love to understand, what sparked it and that kind of journey.
Yeah. So it was really born out of experience. I was really not looking for another business. I was running my consultancy very successfully and, serving my clients. I was really happy doing my strategy consulting work for scale up and startup. So I was really not looking for another idea, but we were in a situation where our own daughter Zoe was really struggling with school can't. So I don't know if anyone is familiar with school can't, is when your nervous system as neurodivergent is so heightened that you just can't go to school. So it's not a tantrum. It's not, something, oh my gosh, you're too easy on your kids. It's really their body can't let them go to school. So they may feel very sick. So, like vomiting, or they may not be vomiting, but they just complain about high belly ache or migraine or headache and things like that. And it's due to sensory overload in the classroom or misunderstanding from their peers or silent bullying or real bullying. So many things can happen in your life. And we absolutely loved Zoe's teacher. And she would ask me every day at 3 p.m., what can I do to support Zoe? And I was starting to get a bit dysregulated by her jumping on me every day at 3 p.m. because being autistic, I was like, this is my time where I don't have more spoon left. So please don't ask me a question. And I like when I know the question that I'm going to be asked so that I can prepare myself. We just decided to create a tool to help Zoe to understand her better, to advocate for her, to support her in the classroom, the support teacher as well in the classroom, to have all of those information, which otherwise were mostly in my own brain. So we created Understanding Zoe to really pull all of those information and give access to Zoe's teacher and Zoe's support worker at home, support coordinator, therapist, and so on and so forth. And 2 weeks after, we received an email from Zoe's teacher being like, oh my goodness, and I'm allowed to share that. That's why I'm sharing it. And she was like, oh my goodness, this is changing everything. I realized how I was coming at Zoe from a place of wanting to help her, but I was actually adding demand onto Zoe. I was coming from a place of wanting to understand, but asking too many questions. So it's like those kind of thing, which really support. And she was like, you need to build this for other families. I was like, okay, sure, but I have a job. My husband has a job as well. We don't really want to build this. Johan was a general manager at Woolies, working on subscription, loving his job and so on. So like, no, we don't want to create this. It's just for Zoe, right? It's like to help you, help Zoe and help us as a family. And then we started connecting with other people and building it for 10 different families. And then everyone was like, oh my goodness, you need to build this. And that's when we joined Techstars and I left my consulting business to focus full time on Understanding Zoe. And then about a year ago, Johan left his job at Woolies to go full time with me as a co-founder. And so we're definitely putting all of our eggs in the same basket because he's Zoe's dad and my husband and my co-founder now. So it became really a family mission to make sure that every other parents were feeling invisible and isolated. And we know through our research on 1,091 families that it's 93% of parents raising neurodivergent children who feel invisible and misunderstood are not anymore misunderstood and invisible and can really feel that they're doing their best job at supporting their children, advocating for them, and making sure that those children can have the same experience as any other child, whether it's going at school or not going at school, whether it's going out in the community or staying at home, they are understood and supported.
It sounds amazing. And I mean, this is something that I'm going through and I have for quite a while because I've got older kids who are neurodivergent, but my 5-year-old at the moment, there's big behaviors at school and you're walking a delicate line a lot of the time as well. Yeah. And I'm sure you found this in that you don't want to be constantly flooding them with information, with the teachers, I mean, because it can be so much for them as well. They've got 27, 20, 30 students. So can you just walk us through, I guess, more in a practical sense, how Understanding Zoe works? So for me, for example, this morning I was literally sending on to the school, Sylvie's OT had put together her sensory profile for me and a list of all the activities that can be really great for Sylvie throughout the day. And I didn't want to, but I sort of sent that on, probably too much for them. So how would Understanding Zoe help me communicate all of Sylvie's needs, which are sort of constantly evolving?
Yeah, constantly evolving. And this is where expecting a teacher to read a 38 pages diagnosis report, expecting a teacher to, always know about the latest strategy, expecting a teacher to know what's working, what's not working in this moment with Sylvie at home or at the therapy is kind of putting too much on the teacher. And we know that 70% of them feel completely under-equipped to support those children that are coming to their classroom and they have less and less support as teacher. So the idea is not to give it to teacher for them to struggle. The idea of Understanding Zoe is actually you as a parent, you upload all of those information and within Understanding Zoe, you invite Sylvie's teacher. And then Sylvie's teacher will have within Understanding Zoe the core strategies that are working right now. And you can decide to delete any that you think are not appropriate anymore. And they will just open the app and know what are the current strategies that they can work with. Or they can ask the AI to pull for them some things that's been recommended by the OT. So they can ask, okay, so Sylvie right now is dysregulated. We just had a drill in the classroom and, it's lots of stress and noise and movement. I'm actually using an example of Zoe here. So I'm going to use the example of the drill, which happened a few months ago. And just Zoe's teacher will then ask, and it will be like, put the noise cancelling headphone close to her desk so that If she wants
Yeah.
it, she can pull it. It's here. Remind her of the quiet corner where she can go under kind of tent that they created, not just for her, because it's not about othering her. It's for any child we need regulation. It's like offering. So then it reminds the teacher of those things in a very bite-sized information. Because what's happening is like those teachers will just drown. So you can also forward the email directly to Understanding Zoe. So you send it to the school. You can send it also to Understanding Zoe. And then Understanding Zoe will process this information. So when the teacher will open the app at some point in the day or the next day or whenever, they will have kind of reminder and strategies and things that are working currently for your child at home or for your child in therapy. And I think this is what's happening a lot is we expect the coordination to be done by the parents, and the parents would just like passing those information to someone who may not be in the space to receive that information. Maybe the teacher will open the email in a moment where they were not looking for that information to be there. Whereas when they open Understanding Zoe and they go onto whichever child's profile that they have access to, they're like, okay, I am here because I want to know what I can do to support that child, rather than receiving an email, which is, oh no, I was just connecting to my email to actually announce about the parent-teacher conference. I'll skim through that later. And we know how many times we don't skim through that again. We just forget about it.
Well, I think also because like autism is such a spectrum and my daughter is PDA, certain things in New South Wales schools taught, or the knowledge is perhaps more broad for autism in general, and those things won't work for Sylvie because giving her, say, reward charts, that's placing a demand on her. So she's absolutely going to feel more activated. So I think it is so varied from child to child, and having something that can support the teachers, because our teachers are amazing and they're trying to be so proactive in coming up with strategies. So I'm assuming this tool will be really helpful to forward plan and not be so reactive.
Exactly.
But also what I like about it, Laetitia, is that, like you said, like we all have to maintain jobs, and the admin involved as a parent is so full on. And even with NDIS support, it's really hard to stay on top of, even with a coordinator. But also the cost, trying to get therapists to talk to one another and trying to organise a team meeting with your child's team. You think they're all going to bill you for that time, as they should, but it's a lot. And trying to coordinate them all at a time that suits, I mean, it's just impossible. So and it eats up your budget, just them talking. So was that something else that you were trying to problem solve?
Yeah, definitely. So there is one aspect, which is a communication with the teacher or the support worker and so on. Like trying not to have to repeat yourself all the time. Zoe's profile is ADHD, autism, PDA, ARFED, so feeding differences. And this is where, you always have to advocate at school around feeding when there is crunch and sip and blah, blah, blah. Or then you have to always, so now the communication is smooth, same with support worker. When they come into my place, they know everything and they can go on Understanding Zoe. But then around your point with the coordination of care, the speech therapist can go and ask what's happening in Zoe's OT session. And they can ask what's been done the latest session, and they can work together on the same goal within the app information. They can really start coordinating together within the app, and you don't need to take on that legwork. And for them, it's way faster than having to read the report from the OT and then having to coordinate with the OT. So you're saving their time, their spoon, their energy, your time, your spoon, your energy. Around NDIS, I had an NDIS review recently for Zoe's plan, one of those calls that you receive and it's a mass number and you don't want to reply. Actually, it's NDIS calling you. I saw this meme recently on Instagram. I was like, yeah, that's my experience. And so I asked them to call me back another day and give me a time so that I could be prepared. And I invite anyone who is listening to this to just say, you have the right to choose when your review is happening. And I went on Understanding Zoe and I prepared my review with Understanding Zoe, because Understanding Zoe had all of the report, the latest foundational assessment. Like everything was within Understanding Zoe. The things that happened at school because of Zoe's teacher putting in when something was supporting Zoe or something was actually dysregulating Zoe. So I had all of those information, which then I can use during my plan review. And it took me 5 minutes to prepare my plan review, when in the past, it takes me hours and hours and days to prepare my plan review, because you have to find all of those information which are in different place. Whereas within Understanding Zoe, I had all of my documents in one place. I could query the AI to remember all of the things that happened. I could prepare my plan review in 5 minutes. So it's definitely those different use cases come into place. And it's often about making sure that everyone understands the personalized need of our children. Because as you said, there is lots of biases from people around. That's what autism look like. I hate when they say that, but this is a kind of thing. Or that's what ADHD look like. Or that's what, whereas our children and every one of us as a unique that needs to be understood and supported. And that's what Understanding Zoe strive to provide.
Amazing.
There's so many AI tools that are emerging right now. Where do you think AI, I guess, looking into the future, has the biggest opportunity to genuinely, obviously Understanding Zoe is kind of at the beginning of your journey probably. And then where do you see it having more opportunity to improve people's lives? It was so interesting what you just said about the NDIS. Is it something that they can be using as well?
Yeah. I think a different angle with AI. So there is one angle which is highly personalized, contextualized approach that will be enabled. And we know through the latest research from the MIT that the most use of AI in 2025, 2026 was for therapy. And there is some risk of using, generic AI to do that. And so that's where, but unfortunately, we see that 50% of women, rather than going to see a GP, they just go to AI and ask questions to AI, like asking Dr. Google in the past, where I think there is a huge opportunity. But as I always say, it's a tool and a weapon. So AI can be a tool if it's used smartly, if it's done intentionally, if it's done ethically, which is what we strive to do with Understanding Zoe. So making it a tool, or it can be a weapon. Because sometimes if you're not clear about how this company is going to use your data, if you're not clear about the impact of those things, then it can be a weapon for insurance. It can be a weapon for other use cases. So that's where I always say, there is a huge opportunity, I think, with AI for personalized, dedicated care, greater support. And we can think of children with one or other, which is what we solve for. But there is the same kind of use case for people who are elderly and isolated, for people who are in what's called the sandwich generation, who look, after children and adults at the same time. It's like there is so many beautiful opportunity. But as I said, what will make the difference between a great AI and not so good, the tool versus a weapon, is how is the company willing to use your data. And having worked in big data for a big firm in the past, like Telstra, I know that the data that you give Telstra are really safe because they have clear guidance, clear risk and privacy. We were not allowed to do many, many things with the data. Where other company, if you don't read between the lines and so on, they may use your data for other purposes which are not the intended purposes. And they will disguise their good through, marketing and so on, when actually go back to, is this something that is going to be for the greater good, or is it just for, enrichment of a database for greater marketing in the future?
Yeah.
I was going to ask, I don't know if this is something that you're thinking, because I feel like Understanding Zoe is bigger than just the neurodivergent.
Yes.
The opportunities are bigger because, my mother, who's just gone into care for dementia, her needs are constantly changing, and I'm like, my dad is telling me on a daily basis his frustrations, and I'm like, we are literally going through the same thing, except I'm dealing with Sylvie, he's dealing with my mum, but it's very similar. The communication is really hard and staying on top of it. And I'm lucky that I'm young enough and fit, and for an aging population, that's just adding another layer. Is there an opportunity there?
Yes, we are definitely working on that in the future. So in the near future, there is other opportunity, which I can't wait to disclose. Actually, I'm going to disclose it here, but we're going to extend Understanding Zoe to adult as well. So the solution will be supporting also neurodivergent adult, because the same needs happen in adult as in children. So focusing on neurodivergent children and adults now, because we learned through our research that 63% of parents of neurodivergent children are neurodivergent themselves. why not creating a solution to support them as well? But we are definitely looking at extending into other situations. And it's funny you mentioned dementia, because we're actually talking about childhood dementia as well as adult dementia. And it's exactly the same pain point. And that's why we kept the name Understanding Zoe, even though a lot of people were like, oh, but you know, it's too linked to a personal story. I was like, not so much, because Zoe means life. So it's understanding life. And everyone at any stage of life deserves to be understood. And it depends on the journey you have. And you can talk about cancer patients. You can talk about different moments where in your journey, you need to be surrounded by a support network. And you don't want the person with a care at that point in time to take on the load of all the admin and the advocacy and so on. You want something else to be holding that. And that's where Understanding Zoe will become that brain that is here to hold all of those information, so that the continuity of care can happen without you as a main carer of this person in your family with either in dementia or having Alzheimer or experiencing cancer or experiencing something harsh, to feel misunderstood and not supported because you're not in the room there with them all the time. Because you need care. Burnout is real in every space.
Yeah.
And we need to look after the carer to make sure that everyone who is receiving the care is receiving great care, because without a carer, the care will be disrupted.
Oh, I was just going to say, it feels like even more than that as well, Laetitia, because, my husband has ADHD, and it could almost be like a relationship tool as
It
well,
is.
because it's not just, because I do struggle with that a lot kind of thing. So I'm not a carer essentially, but I do have a relationship with someone who's neurodivergent, and it's really quite challenging sometimes for me, because I'm just like, just chill, but that's not the right thing to do. So it's this very, it's just the opportunity, I think, for that as well is incredible.
Completely. And this is where I love it. And this is where, like, Johan is neurotypical and I'm neurodivergent. And so for him, like, testing Understanding Zoe for adults, what it could look like, it's really understanding me better and the communication and how to have the right approach and knowing my sensory trigger. And now there are things in our relationship, exactly, which are so much greater because of that shared understanding now. Being like, okay, I think you need a sensory break right now. Do you want to just go for a walk? Those kind of things.
Yeah.
Well, my goodness, thank you so much. The understanding, and that's where adults is the next release, but then we're looking at other conditions.
The final question was that we've sort of touched on, but when you are building a product like this, and I imagine it's so tricky because you are so deeply linked to, the human element, balancing that technology. And I mean, how do you balance the technology with the human side of the problem that you're trying to solve?
It's a very good question. And, I was trained in human-centered design. I was trained in all of those approach around ethnography. Like, one of the strategy consulting firm I used to work for was based in the US, in San Francisco. And it was all about ethnographic research and understanding who is using your product so that you can design it for them. So I apply that lens to Understanding Zoe. It's always about putting the humanness into technology rather than putting technology into the human hand. So how can we have Understanding Zoe built with those who use it, those who are really interacting with the product and here having curiosity and looking at how teacher may use it, educator in daycare or outside of school care, therapists who are in a session or before a session, support coordinator, parents, auntie, grandma, and so on, and just discovering how they use it and what is most helpful for them, and then building the technology around it rather than the other way around.
So when you've got the different end users, do you build that into that customer profile almost? Like, is that how you do it?
It's within the onboarding journey in a way, and within the interaction with the app, and within, you start building up a bit of a profile and an understanding of who they are, and then you help them within the journey. So as I always say, it's like the technology is here to support the human, and we need to understand the human first. So then within the journey of them using the app, you will trigger different elements depending on who they are and how they are interacting and how they are using it and so on. So definitely building persona is one thing, but then it's within the usage of the app that you learn and personalize also through your email journeys that is in the back end, your life cycle, different things trigger different email and different action and different education. So it's uber personalization, as I always say. And my last project in Telstra was actually working within the AI engine of personalization within Telstra. So I'm highly passionate about how can we personalize with the end user in mind rather than, blankets on everyone. And unfortunately, I think there are many lazy technologies today who are just putting a blanket on everyone. And I think this is something that, yes, AI can put the blanket on everyone, but what you want is you actually want to use AI for uber personalization. But to inform this uber personalization, you need to have the humanness and the human connection with each of them to understand their journey, their pain points. So that's where I just want to leave everyone with this, which is you can use AI to simplify lots of the things, but it's not about being lazy. It's about using this extra time that you have to be curious.
Yeah, I love that. And just quickly before we wrap up, have you had any feedback from families that are using it and any quick bites on success?
Yes. So we would love to have more reviews on the App Store. So if you use it on the App Store, please leave a review. Otherwise, you can send us email like everyone has been doing so far and leaving reviews. But I think the one that I really loved was one parent, and I'm allowed to share this because it was a testimonial. One parent saying that they had a teenager son and actually understanding what was preventing them to go out and to go into the shop and to interact with the community was happening thanks to Understanding Zoe. And then they could have this beautiful interaction with their son to just discover and prepare them for more autonomy. So that really made me cry, because when you have a 16-year-old son who is not able to do things that you had the dream for them to be able to do, but then the journey of raising children who have different needs is sometimes you have the grieving and the accepting and then the advocacy. And for them, it was beautiful to just uncover what they could do to support them so that they could do that thing, because they actually wanted to do that thing. They were just blocked in many ways by other barriers that they discovered thanks to Understanding Zoe. Another use case is co-parents sharing with us that now the other co-parent is showing more understanding and more accommodation in their own house, because again, statistically, parents raising neurodivergent children have more chances of going into a divorce because it's an extra load, which we proved with our research. It's 33 hours extra a week that you take on when you raise a neurodivergent child. So when you raise a neurotypical child, you have many hours a week, 33 hours extra on top
per
of
child.
Per
so
child.
That means 99 for me. No wonder I'm tired.
Yeah, it's really insane, the data that we gathered. 33%, the 33 hours a week, and 10 hours of those 33 hours spent on advocacy, admin, and all those kind of things, which guide me through the second example, which was the co-parent and being like, I'm always the one doing all of the thing and so on. Thanks to Understanding Zoe, the other parents step up and the child feels safer in both houses. And so it's just that sense of safety, but also, shifting a bit of the load to the other co-parent. Even though you may be separated, that's a beautiful other example. We really receive email regularly and messages regularly. I received on Instagram over the weekend and I asked for permission to share it. And they said yes, of a play therapist saying, oh my goodness, discovered your app through a client. I absolutely love it. I want to share it with my other clients because now they can do the play exercise at home and I can know what's been happening. It's just this kind of thing where everyone, I think, strive to have impact, yet we didn't have any technology tool to provide that ease of impact and results. So hopefully Understanding Zoe can bridge that gap.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been such an amazing conversation. For people that don't know or want to learn more about Understanding Zoe, or if they want to follow your work, where can we point to them to go?
Yeah, sure. So you can go on our website, www.understandingzoe.com. You have lots of blogs as well and free download and free sources. I'm preparing at the moment a PDA guide. We have an ADHD guide. You have our research. You have a neuro-affirming guide to help you advocate for more affirming languages, which is a big difference within Understanding Zoe. Lots of AI out there are biased and non-affirming. We are. So you can go on the website, just explore all of the free things, and then you can also unlock your free trial of the app. You can also follow us on social, on Instagram. It's understanding.zoe. We do lots of content, again, to educate. We have a podcast, which is called the Neurodivergent Pulse. And you can follow me on LinkedIn as well, Laetitia Andrac. I'm a huge advocate for neurodiversity. And it's funny that we're recording this on Neurodiversity Week. I don't know when it will be released, but I'm a huge advocate to make sure that everyone is welcome in the workplace and in life. And that's something that Neurodiversity Week is for, which is about weaving together neurotypical and neurodivergent humans so that we can create a beautiful world together.
Thank you so much, Laetitia. Thank you. Really, I could ask you a million more questions, but we can talk more offline.
Thank you.
So that's it for this episode of Femmebot, the podcast powering women in tech. If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe and share.